to heat up your frozen dinners, grab your TV tray, and settle in for another episode of the Plus Platoon, your podcast for all things Disney Plus, brought to you by Disney Plus fans. Watch along with us every week as we cover all the new, the old, the good, and the bad on Disney Plus. So put down that remote, don't touch that dial, and welcome your fabulous Plus Platoon host.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Plus Platoon. We're a Disney Plus fan podcast that gives honest, spoiler-filled reviews of movies and shows on Disney Plus. We'll look at new releases, coming attractions, and we'll even go back into the vault to revisit some of the classic Disney that's on the platform. Make sure you're subscribed and you will never miss a moment. Directly from the Phoenix airport, I'm going to bring in my girl, Kate. Kate, good to see you.
Thanks. Good to see you too, brother. Just hanging out, in the airport.
Yeah, for
Here
like
we are.
6 hours. So
for a long time.
Yeah. Next, we have Peter. Pete, glad to have you with us.
Hey, everybody. I got my highball glass and my whiskey to celebrate my favorite cartoon film noir mix.
That's fair. That's fair. And last but certainly not least for this, we've got Steve. Steve, glad to have you with us.
Hey, everyone.
Hey. Guys, if you have not already, please like, subscribe, share. We on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere at Plus Platoon. Make sure you're subscribed, as I said, and that way you'll never miss an episode. And we've got a lot of pretty decent ones coming up. So this week, it is the 35th anniversary of this movie. From 1988, it is Who Framed Roger Rabbit, one of only two truly Disney titles that were done under the Touchstone Pictures banner. What's the other one, guys?
Ooh.
The one is Nightmare Before Christmas was a Touchstone picture.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that.
Touchstone was Michael Eisner's attempt to get more adult movies, so he didn't actually have to have them be Disney making them. But this and that were actually branded as Disney. Were actually publicized as Disney pictures.
Interesting.
Some of the Touchstone, Splash, Sister Act was a Touchstone. Turner and Hooch was Touchstone. So Touchstone was
Splash wasn't Disney?
Splash was Touchstone, which
I
was
didn't realize that.
Disney.
Splash was the first Touchstone picture, I think.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? If you don't know the plot of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you've been living under a little bit of a rock. But bottom line is, it's a toon and adult mix. Think the Mary Poppins chalk painting scene, but like that's the entire movie. And instead of the adults in the toon world, the toons are in the adult world or human world. So
yeah,
there's murder. A character by the name of Roger Rabbit is framed up for the murder. And it's all about how they have to figure out who actually committed all these crimes. So, stars Bob Hoskins. It's got Christopher Lloyd in it. This is not the only time he'll be making an appearance this episode, by the way. And it is a classic. I remember seeing, did not see this one in the theaters, but I do remember watching this we got the VHS not long after it came out. Pete, Steve, did you guys see this in the theaters?
I sure did.
I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Kate had not been born yet, or had just been born.
False. I had just been born. Thank you.
So you might have gone and seen it. Your folks might. You might have been dragged.
You're not
along.
wrong. You're not wrong.
Although with a baby, that's more likely go see the sitter. It's date night. But
yes, that. Yes, that.
So
this isn't quite a kids movie.
No, this is not. This is scary. This would be very scary. I would say 8 to 10 or older. A very mature 8-year-old, but 10, even a 10 or 11-year-old, this would be freaky for.
Yeah.
So, okay. So 35 years on, Kate, I'm going to start with you on this one. What made
Okay.
this such a successful classic? This was the number 2 box office movie of 1988.
This movie was freaking brilliant. This movie was brilliant. It was so well done. I'm so glad that we watched the prop culture of this before I watched the movie again. How they got away with having all of the some of the Looney Tunes characters and Betty Boop, and you wouldn't see that nowadays. Go ahead, Derek.
Well, that's an interesting story because contractually, you'll notice like Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse always showed up and were in the same shot for the same amount of time. You'll notice Porky
Correct.
Pig and Tinkerbell at the end were same shot. Donald and Daffy Duck, same shot, because contractually, in order to use the very well-known Warner Brothers characters, they had to get the same amount of screen time as the famous Disney characters. So that's why you typically saw them in pairs, is because
Got it.
to get enough. If anything, they actually gave the Warner Brothers characters just a little bit more screen time.
Yeah.
So
This movie was so far ahead of its time. Like, I feel like if they had dropped this movie now, it would still be a hit. It would still do well. It didn't feel like I didn't really feel like I was like, oh man, like this, it's so dated. Like, I didn't feel that at all. The animation was dope. The bridge, I'm kind of surprised they haven't made more movies like this. The bridge between the animation and live action was phenomenal. The acting, the main actor was, he had to feel like he was, he had to feel, I'm sure, like he had partially gone insane by the end of making this movie with how much he did with different tunes. The villain, oh my word, he was so scary and was so good. Like, so good. It was so great. It was so great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. By the time it was over, I was like, that's it? Like, it's done? This is so good. I would go back and rewatch this movie. I think it has held the test of time. Jessica Rabbit is hilarious. Roger Rabbit is hilarious. My favorite part of the movie that I thought was this movie had me cackling. And one of the parts was when he goes, no tune can resist a shave and a haircut. And so he's like, do, 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 like, and then Ratatouille, like that, I cackled. It's just so good. I could talk about this movie for a long time, so I'll throw it down to Pete. You go.
I love this movie. If you're a fan of the old Disney and Looney Tunes cartoons, because there's definitely a fair amount of inspiration, I would say, from both in this movie, because it is at times a very wacky kind of movie. But it also kind of takes its film noir directed or detective 1940s roots seriously. I think
Spade.
But it does all that stuff with full seriousness, and then adds in the wackiness of the cartoon characters, and it's a mix that maybe shouldn't work, but it just does work.
It works perfectly.
The animation overlay with the live action is so well done. And Steve mentioned to all of us to watch the behind the scenes stuff, and I'd seen that, but I watched it again, and just you think about what it took, because there's no computer animation here, right? This is all hand drawn. So they were taking cells, just like the old fashioned, pre Pixar animation, drawing the characters to try to match it up with the film that they shot. And they had to make an entire, they said there's 55 minutes of animation in this movie, and it's about a 90-minute movie. So there are parts that don't have cartoon characters in them, but not much. So yeah,
Not much at all.
Yeah, it's fun. It's tight. I actually remember the first time I saw this movie, the theater I saw it in. I was a freshman in college, and I was Steven Spielberg was my hero, and he executive produced this. Robert Zemeckis had just before this made Back to the Future, and shortly after this made Back to the Future 2 and 3. I was really looking forward to this when this came out, and I was not disappointed. I've seen this movie a couple dozen times, and I still get a kick out of seeing things in it. One thing, my daughter watched it with me. She likes the movie a lot too. She's an animation major, but like we both got a real kick out of they pan Eddie's office at one point. They have the different newspaper articles, and one of the articles is that he got Goofy off of spy charges. And just the idea that Goofy was on trial for being a spy that's a movie I want to see. So I'll stop now and turn it over to Steve.
Same thing, just like Kate and Pete have said. Just the blend of animation and live action is just amazing. I highly recommend going back, because I read up on this of the scene when they're in the back room with the swinging lamp, and realizing how well they animated that with the lamp going back and forth. I thought about it. It's done so well, you don't even pick up on it, that it just seems so natural and flowing.
Right.
Then,
what part was that? I don't remember
that's
that.
when they're in the back room in the diner, and they bump the lamp, and the lamp's swinging back and forth the entire scene. And if you watch Roger Rabbit, they have shadows going across him back and forth the entire time.
But the lamp was live action. The lamp wasn't
the lamp.
animated.
Yes. And that came from, I guess, Disney animators now have a thing called bump the lamp, when it means you're doing that little bit extra to push the animation. Got that from behind the ears thing. Just all the process. Love all, like you said, Pete, the sight gags. There's so much going on that watching it multiple times, you can pick up on little different things and the little nods to Looney Tunes and the old Disney cartoons. Also just really a great story, a great sort of mystery, trying to figure out who's behind it. I think it holds up. I mean, there's a few scenes we can talk about the next question, but it still holds up. I didn't feel like I was watching a movie from the 80s when I was watching it this weekend.
That's fair.
Derek, what would you say?
That's definitely fair.
Yeah.
Kate, you asked why they don't do this anymore. Is because it was so insanely expensive to animate it that way. Because again, they would literally take so they filmed everything. They took each frame of film and would draw the cell, then lay the cell on the film, and then create a new, basically take a picture of that. So just some of those things, some of the physical, we've talked about it, but the physical tie-in to the real world. Like I remember watching something with when Roger's in the sink and the thing that has to pop up and squirts out the water and then goes back down in. And I mean, Baby Herman's cigar when he's in that stroller is just one of those where it's, again, the visuals on this, especially the visuals when there are tunes on scene, are amazing. Some of the running inside joke of why would you need a car in LA? Public transit's great. No one's ever going to build a freeway.
Yeah.
Because that whole running gag was great. As Pete said, it really reminded me of some of the old Humphrey Bogart commercials. Remind me of when Humphrey Bogart, like Maltese Falcon and all those different movies. Also, Bob Hoskins, until like right close to the very end, reminded me of how Michael Caine played in Muppet Christmas Carol. Bob Hoskins had to be the straight man. He had to be the straight man through this, because if you're dealing with Roger, you can't trade Roger joke for joke. So you got to have a straight man, and most of those classic comedy duos had straight men. Bud Abbott was the straight man to Lou Costello. I mean, it's just you've got to have someone for the funny people to play off of. And I mean, look, I would argue there are a few sex symbols in the 1980s greater than Jessica Rabbit. Realistically, I mean, and just how well she's drawn to look. So you really believe she is a human tune in love with a rabbit, and that it works. You make that connection, and it's just now. Yes. Okay. So, Pete, you were the one that loved this, so I'm actually going to start this next question with you. What about this movie should be dipped? What should be gotten rid of?
So I'll be honest, because I kind of went back to what I didn't care for initially, and I still don't really love this part of this aspect of it. I mean, I get them, but I don't really think the weasels work very well. Myself, yes, you need the sidekicks, the sidekicks that work for the villain, and do his bidding, and they're also incompetent. That's always right. That's always the case. That Horace and Jasper from Cruella, and from 101 Dalmatians, and we can the hyenas in Lion King. But like, I don't know, they were just like, I don't know. I just found them more annoying than I found them entertaining. So they're my biggest gap in this movie. They are legitimately from Disney movies, right? They're actually from the Wind in the Willows. So if you go to California and ride Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, you will see some of the weasels in that ride. But certainly not a popular Disney movie. I would have taken that and done a twist on it somehow, and had those characters be characters that are like lovable in animation. I don't know who I would pick. An example might be like have them be the Seven Dwarfs or something like that, where you think of them as being lovable, but
they were actually supposed to be the Seven Dwarfs. Originally, there were supposed to be 7 weasels with silly names. So that was the original plan. But then they cut it back to like the 3 or 4 weasels. So interesting you said that.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, someone that you wouldn't expect to be bad guys.
The 3 little pigs.
That would have been a better gag.
Oh, pigs as cops.
But and as I said, I don't know that Disney would have done.
Dude, the 3 little pigs as the cops.
So.
Yeah.
But anyways, other than that, though, this movie there's not much to complain about in this movie. I just can't. There's nothing really, even like the degree of sexism that's in it. To me, it's appropriate for a movie that's set in the 40s, because that's that time period. So you're not, and I mean, it's played for laughs or whatever, but it's still like it works in the story. So I don't even really complain about that the way I would in some more modern movies that took place in the 80s. But Steve, you got anything else?
I'd just say some scenes sort of are outdated today's standards. The one that comes to my mind is the scene with the bullets, the cartoon bullets that he fires sort of near the end of the movie. That one I just went, ew. And then, like you said, probably some of Baby Herman's comments that he makes of sort of just where you look at today's standards are a little bit more sexist. But again, if you look at the style of the movie, the film noir, it sort of fits in. So, but I don't see much wrong with it. Like, it held up. Like I said before, I didn't feel like I was watching a movie from 1988.
That's fair. Yeah, Steve, I'd agree with you on the bullets.
Yeah.
I'd agree with you because there's one where it's, the old Native American pulls out the tomahawk and chops up the bottle type thing.
Yeah.
That's the one bullet I really had a problem with. The rest of them, though, are the old, and they're the old voices of those old actors. It's the same actors that are the old cowboys in Back to the Future 3 are the ones that voiced the bullets. And were all, that was Strother Martin and all those different character actors they played the old, Darling Darn. So they were those old cowboy characters. We've talked about the animation. There were a couple times where I really noticed that sometimes the paint didn't get completely put on the cells and you could see through the animation. One time that in particular is you can see the edge of the stage as Jessica walks by in one scene in her song. And there's a couple other, and I noticed they were mostly with Jessica, where it's like something happened. They couldn't get her dress quite all the way colored.
Well, I think her dress was supposed to be see-through, so you were supposed to be able to see. But you're right. It still wasn't perfect.
Right. Yeah. Because you can see it come through her. I would also say, after having watched this more than once, the second half is by far better than the first half. It's much. I think the second half is much more entertaining than the first half. To me, this is slow until Roger shows up in Eddie's apartment, and I would even argue until Judge Doom shows up in the bar. Up till then, yes, I understand why you have to have the setup, but from where Judge Doom shows up to the end doesn't feel like 45 minutes. The first 45 minutes kind of feel like 45 minutes, if that makes sense. So just some of that pacing, I said, I understand the setup, but if you've seen it more than once or more than 3 or 4 times, it's just one of those, come on, get to the good stuff. And to me, it affects the rewatchability a little bit. Like, this used to actually be on TV some occasionally, and it would depend on where it was in the movie as if I'd pick it up or not. So, and there's other movies like that as well. There's definitely other movies like that as well. So, Kate, anything else? Anything you didn't really like, or anything I'm totally wrong on?
Well, I would just like to say that a movie that is not like that is the 1994 classic starring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, which would be called Sleepless in Seattle. I would like to let it be known that you can start that movie anywhere in it, jump in anywhere in it, and it is a masterpiece.
You know why you can start it anywhere? Because nothing happens.
Because it's great. Because every part is cinema gold. So I kind of like Pete, where I'm like, I don't really have a lot of criticism. I do think that people watching this need to know it's not a kids movie, because Judge Doom is terrifying. Like, when he does that smile thing, and then when it comes out that he's a toon and he has the freaky eyes and y'all, like, I was watching this and I was like, oh yeah, this movie did terrify me as a child. This and Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands, all 3 of those.
Beetlejuice, you don't really have any recourse on Beetlejuice. You knew that was going to be scary.
True, but I mean, Christopher Lloyd played it perfectly. So I can't even say that as a negative, because he played the villain just so well. Sure, the whole, that's not as bright. The whole women being giant sex symbols, it's not great, but it works for this movie, because if they didn't treat Jessica Rabbit that way, it wouldn't work. If they didn't, like, it wouldn't make Jessica Rabbit Jessica Rabbit. So I think this movie is so well done. I would agree with you, Derek, that it does pick up the pace toward the end. But I don't have a lot of negative to say. I think it's so well done.
That's fair.
So I would argue against Derek.
Of
in
course.
that I agree that the early part of the movie is slower paced, but that's the part of the movie that is more
Film noir.
homage to film noir, which is not always, I mean, those movies were not necessarily fast paced movies. It was all about mood and mystery and everything like that. And I
Can you
really
give
enjoy,
examples of
Maltese
film noir? Like, what are
Falcon.
some?
yeah, To Have or Have Not.
Was Casablanca
Citizen Kane.
film noir?
No, Casablanca.
is
No,
not
Casablanca
really.
isn't really a noir. Double Indemnity is a great noir.
Were any like Alfred Hitchcock movies film noir?
Rear Window
I'm just
almost,
trying.
Yeah, Rear Window kind of.
but not really.
But
Hitchcock came after film noir for the most part.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Film noir is
I
typically black and white.
But basically, and film noir isn't even right. It's really like the as Derek said, the Humphrey Bogart like detective movies, Raymond Chandler and that type of thing, which were often part of film noir, but like that hard-boiled detective,
so like
that's
James
seen it
Cagney
all, and
kind of.
Yeah, some of those kind of
yeah. Maltese Falcon is a
Okay.
perfect example. If you haven't seen, and this goes for
I
Kate,
think-
but anywhere else out there, if you have not seen Maltese Falcon,
is an amazing movie.
it's a great tight mystery
book
movie.
is
Great
better.
movie.
The book is better.
Well,
And I did read that they based the script more not on the book that this is supposed to be adapted from, but from Chinatown.
Yes, they did.
yeah.
So
Chinatown's
Interesting.
another great
Yes.
noir.
So I think that so the writer said that's sort of they based the film on.
Wait. Was it Werewolf by Night? Is that what we watched?
That was
that
film
be
noir. Yes, that was a film
Okay.
noir type show.
They
yes.
definitely
Right.
had some film noir in that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Film noir is all about lighting and mood. And this didn't quite have as much of that. That's why I said to call it film noir is probably not right, but it's definitely like 40s detective homage, so to speak. And so I think that
Okay.
early part of the movie is more that. And yes, it's not as exciting or repeatable, but I still find it
Mhm.
enjoyable. I don't get tired of any part of this movie. I've seen it. I saw it a dozen times when I was younger. When my daughter was old enough to watch it, she and I have watched it a dozen times, and we both. And that's another comment too. She's 19. She probably first saw it when she was like 14 or 15, and she loves it. And and we also have like a modern day comparison to, not positively compare this to, but the recent Chippendale Rescue Rangers movie was kind of trying to be this
Yes,
a little
it
bit,
was, and it failed miserably.
and it didn't work. Yeah.
So
Can you think of any movie that's kind of like this that did work though?
No, in fact, there was another movie at the same time, a couple years after this, that came out called Cool World, that is horrible. And it tried to do this. I don't know if Steve remembers that movie.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Kate, the only other one that you might remember, the only other one that comes close that you might remember would be Space Jam.
I love Space Jam. That is a really good point. That's another cinema class. That's not on Disney. It's not Disney Plus.
And
No, that's
right
Warner Brothers.
Kate's taste level.
Also, listen, I love anything Michael Jordan though. So
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
All right.
I'll agree in that it's combination of live action and animation, and it mostly works. I wouldn't put it at the same level as this, but
no. But it's you want one from that similar time period that tried to do this. It's Space Jam.
Yeah.
Yes. And Disney turned Warner Brothers down. Warner Brothers supposedly asked Disney to use characters, and Disney said no.
And Disney said flat out no. Yeah. So they were okay with taking Warner Brothers characters, but no, you can't have Mickey.
Well, but you do notice in this movie the Warner Brothers characters all get very small scenes, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're in there enough so that you see them, but they're not major. None of the roles are major.
Which, an interesting fact on that, you'll notice that some of the Warner Brothers characters don't look quite right. What I'm thinking of is the Bugs Bunny. It's, that's not the Bugs Bunny you think of when you think of Bugs Bunny, because that's how Bugs Bunny was drawn in the 40s. Yep. And Warner Brothers insisted, no, you need to do a modern Bugs Bunny. So Disney said, okay. And they showed him the preview film with all modern look characters. And then they put out the film with the old look characters.
Yeah, this like Donald.
But Mickey Mouse was not old.
No, but the Bugs Bunny, you'll notice it wasn't the Bugs Bunny from the Daffy Duck.
Right.
It wasn't, Daffy's bill was longer.
Yeah.
Than,
it was definitely the old school Daffy. For
yes.
Sure. Yeah.
With the hair almost flowing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so this was a movie directed by Robert Zemeckis. Now, Steve, I'm going to start with you. This was such a groundbreaking movie in 1988, but is this Robert Zemeckis' best work?
Oh, I've gone back and forth on all this. Better. Not Pinocchio. No. That's not the bottom. I have gone back and forth between this and then Back to the Future. And it's hard because Back to the Future has the three, and I sort of blend those all together. It's so tough because this is so groundbreaking. I'd say it's up there. I'd say for me, it's a tie between that first Back to the Future. I'd say 1, possibly Back to the Future 3, and then this. Because I look at the other ones, and I'm going with here because I'm going to go actually with, yes, this is the best because how it's just held up. Because I look at these other movies, I don't think they've held up as long. Like after 35 years watching this, it still holds up. And it's still amazing. Look at the technical things they had to do to pull it off when you realize there's no CGI. So I'm going to say, yes, this is probably his best work that he's ever done.
Noting that you didn't even mention Forrest Gump. So
I didn't care for Forrest Gump.
Okay.
You took mine, Derek. You took mine.
No, I'm not saying Forrest Gump was better than this. I'm not saying that at all. Kate, you can still have that one. But I think this is probably in his top 3. I think it's this, Back to the Future 1, and Forrest Gump. I would honestly put this tied with the first Back to the Future. Just because I think, and you think you have to set the first Back to the Future separate. I have a problem with counting sequels as the best movie of something, just because without the previous stuff, you don't have the good movies, whereas that original movie has to stand by itself. So I have a hard time saying sequels are the better work. Maybe the more entertaining work. As far as an overall better work, I'm going to say no. This is not his best work because I'm on board with Kate. I think just as far as a story, as far as what he had to do with the directing, because realistically, this one, without Bob Hoskins being able to visually simulate where Roger was, which interesting. Do you know who their original pick was that they could not get on the phone for Eddie Valiant?
I do know.
Kate?
Can I take a guess?
Yeah. 80s
Bob
comedy.
Hope.
No.
Oh.
Bill Murray.
80s comedy.
Yeah.
Bill Murray.
Oh.
And when he heard that he was, because it came out in
I
one
was
of the
going to say
interviews.
Cosby.
No, Bill Murray.
Ooh, that would have been awful.
That would have been horrible. Hey. Anyway.
Roger Rabbit, we're going to go down to the cellar and do things.
I got some jello for you, Roger.
But Bill Murray didn't even realize that until they saw an interview that, yeah, Bill Murray was our first choice. Like 10 years later, apparently when he heard that, he just sat up and just screamed because he says, I would have taken this movie. I would have taken this movie in a heartbeat. So, but.
And it would have been phenomenal with him as well, I think.
He couldn't have played the straight man as well. It would have been a totally different movie. Because
it would have been a very different movie. I'm not saying it wouldn't be good because he's very good, but
it would not have been. It would not have been the film noir presentation because you wouldn't have had the dark, grisly Bob Hoskins character.
Yeah.
So
But Dirk, I think that's why this is his best, because he got the actors. When you sit there, you can tell that Bob Hodgins, Eddie Valiant is actually looking at Roger Rabbit. It doesn't seem like he's looking at a blank there. And if you watch the documentary, they showed how they sort of pulled that off. But
right, but even in that same documentary, even Robert Zemeckis says, "I don't know how he did this. I don't know how he focused his eyes where they needed to be." So to me, that's not Robert Zemeckis. That's Bob Hoskins. So Kate kind of had a preview, but so for you, what is his best work?
So the thing, and I think I'm gonna get a lot of boo. No, that's not true. In my opinion, how do you compare Back to the Future to the Polar Express? Like,
so you're saying Polar Express is better?
hang on, no, but I'm saying, how do you compare the two? Because they're both
That's
great,
what we do.
but for totally different reasons. I love the Polar Express. It's one of my favorite holiday movies, but this is hard because I think that this movie is so innovative, and it's, man, I look like Two-Face right now. It's so innovative, and it's so it's just so, I want to say ahead of its time, but it's not even ahead of its time. It's like of its own time, that I would agree with Derek. I think this is in the top 3. And I think that Forrest Gump and Back to the Future are right there, because they're both, all 3 of those are so great, but for such different reasons. Yeah. So I would agree with Derek that it's those 3.
But this is not, for me, this is not the top 1. So
I mean, in my opinion, Forrest Gump is so good. It's so sad, but it's so quotable, and you just fall so in love with him. I mean, I know, Steve, you don't like Forrest Gump, I know, but it's and I mean, in my eyes, Tom Hanks can kind of do no wrong. I really hope that there's never a scandal involving Tom Hanks, because I just think that he's great.
Pinocchio.
He was the only decent thing about that movie.
He was the only good part of it. He didn't suck. The cat sucked.
The whole movie.
Everything else sucked, but yeah, he was not the problem with that movie.
So
now it kind of, if you look back through all of his movies, though, he's used Tom Hanks a lot.
Yeah,
a lot of his movies have Tom Hanks in them. Go ahead, Pete.
It's tough. Forrest Gump is a really, really good new movie. It's not my favorite. I would have a hard time putting this ahead of Back to the Future, but I was just at the right age when Back to the Future came out. Back to the Future is, even though I enjoy the sequels, the original is a far superior movie to the sequels.
Yes.
So I don't like comparing that. I actually like Back to the Future 3 a lot. I don't know why.
2 is terrible.
2 is not very good. 2 is everything wrong with time travel movies, and 1 is everything right with time travel movies. But
2 actually features the tunnel from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah,
it's the tunnel.
When we went to LA several years ago, I had to go and find that tunnel because of this movie and Back to the Future. It's not that hard to find. It's in Griffith Park. So
okay.
Anyways, I would probably put Back to the Future as my favorite. I would probably put this second, and quite honestly, third, I would, if it wasn't for the last 10 minutes of the movie, I would probably say Castaway, because I think Castaway is so good until you get to the last 10 minutes of the movie. So
I'd put Castaway above Forrest Gump.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I wouldn't, if it wasn't for the that movie fails at the end of the movie, but it's, oh my God, so good for 3/4, 80% of the movie. And that's really, well, and to your point, this movie, it's good direction, but like the animators got to be given so much credit for making this movie work. And I know he was involved with that too, but lots of, I don't know, he's made some great movies over the years. We would probably have a fight about Polar Express because that movie creeps me the hell out.
I'm okay. Yeah,
I agree.
3 against 1. So yeah,
I love that movie. I love that movie.
But think about when it came out and how young our youngin on the panel is.
Yeah, no, I understand it. I understand it.
I love that movie.
And I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm just saying like the animation at the time is
it's freaky.
It's just
motion capture stuff is just
there's some great stuff in that movie. There's I'm not disagreeing with you there, Kate, but it's not.
It's a great movie.
And all credit to
Cinema
Zemeckis.
classic.
Like he basically turned his back on live action movies for 10 years, and he made Beowulf, the Polar Express, and then that
Jim Carrey's
really
Christmas
horrible Christmas Carol movie. And I remember seeing Beowulf in the theaters because I loved Robert Zemeckis so much, and that movie isn't good either. So I would totally agree. Of the three, Polar Express is by far the best. But
yeah,
I get why it's a classic. So
the only thing I will say in defense of the Christmas Carol is that it actually follows very, very close to the original story, because the original story is actually not that great either. But it's interesting. Though we talked about the animation, there was a special Oscar given for this picture to the animation director, Richard Williams. So
yeah, and if you remember when we watched Waking Sleeping Beauty, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was discussion in that at the time all the best animators were assigned to Roger Rabbit and
not Little Mermaid.
And not Little Mermaid.
And really not Rescuers Down Under, but
yeah.
Okay, so in this is one of the very, 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 very few times, if not only time, that the characters from Warner Brothers and the characters from Disney and the Fleischer Studios and all those other small studios from the early 1900s came together. Kate, I'm going to start with you. What is either your favorite non-Disney cartoon or who is your favorite non-Disney character?
In this movie?
No, just in general. Animated.
Can I go last?
Sure. Pete?
Okay, Pete, you go.
Okay. Coyote and Roadrunner. They're barely in this, but if I'm going non-Disney, I love the Coyote and Roadrunner shorts. They're also kind of the same, but just such brilliant silent comedy. Just great stuff. And so anything with the Coyote and Roadrunner, I would put as my favorite. And you can't not love Bugs Bunny. So he's number 2 or number 3, I guess that would be. Steve?
For the ones that was actually Roger Rabbit, I had to go with Droopy Dog. I thought his scene with the elevator was hilarious. I think they were supposed to be in it and they got cut, or they didn't quite get the rights, but it would be Tom and Jerry, because I loved watching Tom and Jerry growing up.
Tom and Jerry got cut from this. There was
okay. I knew there was something that got caught because there's supposed to be a funeral scene, I think, that they were supposed to be in. But Droopy Dog, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Coyote and Roadrunner were in the last shot.
I think
in the last scene.
Almost everybody was in that last scene.
Yeah.
So, for me, the pinnacle of cartoons is either Duck Amuck with Daffy and with Bugs tormenting Daffy, or the Elmer Fudd, Daffy Duck, Bugs Bunny, Duck Rabbit Duck type Duck
Rabbit
season,
season,
season ones.
Duck season, yeah.
There's about four or five of those. To me, those are the ones that, I mean, Pete, don't get me wrong. I love Roadrunner and Coyote, but as you said, they're a lot. Realistically, you could splice them all together and you wouldn't know that it wasn't all the same cartoon.
Yeah.
To a point. A couple of them do have running gags throughout, but just as far as laughter, it's got to be when Bugs and Daffy get on the same screen together. Think even like when there's the genie, when they go find the Alibaba and the genie, or I mean, it's probably Bugs Bunny because think Bugs in the Bowl. Okay, think Bugs in the Opera Singer. Just the irreverence of Bugs.
I was gonna go, if we're gonna just talk favorite cartoon, I'm gonna go with Rabbit of Seville.
That's a good one. Favorite cartoon, I gotta go Duck Amuck. So
Okay, well, I'm gonna go from a completely different time era.
because we're old.
I know. The Rugrats. The Rugrats.
Rugrats is a good show.
Rugrats is a great show.
Yep.
And just, yeah, I loved the Rugrats when I was a kid. I love the Rugrats now. So yeah, probably the Rugrats. I'm not a huge SpongeBob fan, but SpongeBob has some very, very funny moments. But yeah, I think of my favorite cartoons, it's probably the Rugrats.
I'll tell you, Kate, I watched the Rugrats when it was on, and I was in my 20s at the time. and I watched many episodes of the Rugrats because I thought that show was pretty solid, both for kids, but also as an adult, that it had enough humor that, yeah.
And I will say that I was not allowed to watch Rugrats growing up, just like I was not allowed to watch The Simpsons growing up.
I wasn't allowed to watch Simpsons.
Why were you not allowed to watch Rugrats?
No, I could have been allowed to. I just didn't want to watch Rugrats. Rugrats it did not appeal to me. I was not allowed to watch Simpsons growing up.
I wasn't allowed to either.
Because you have to remember, we are from the buckle. I'm from the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Right.
So, and it's just the early Simpsons were terrible. The early Simpsons were terrible and vulgar, and like some of the ones on the Tracy Ullman show.
Yes.
Were horrible.
Yes.
So, okay. As we always do, and guys, this has been fun talking about some stuff that, I love to pulling in the connections that we do with these as we go through these old movies. But we always rate movies out of 5 cups of pixie dust, with 5 being the best. Kate, cups of pixie dust on Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
So I was like, oh, I'm going to give it a 4.5, but I keep trying to think about why I would knock 0.5 off, and I don't have a reason. So, but a 5, that's some serious stuff. Go 4.5, but I might change it to 5. 4.5.
So I'm giving it a 5 because to me, any movie that I I disagree with Derek. I would sit if you. I watched it 3 days ago. If you told me tonight you want to go down and sit down and watch Roger Rabbit, I would watch it again. 5 stars.
Uh-oh.
I have to go with 4.
I don't care what you pick.
I have to go with 4. I mean, I really enjoy it, but 5 is that truly just love it. I enjoy it. I'll watch it again. I'm gonna go with the 4.
And
solid choice.
And because of my split opinion between the second half and the first half, I'm gonna go with 3.5. So,
Derek!
Wow, you gave it I thought you were gonna give it a 3.
No, I give it a 3.
I thought you were gonna give it a 3.
I love the second half of this movie.
That's the whiskey talking, Derek. You can have your own opinion, even when it's wrong.
Oh, have you not been on this show for the last 2 years? You know I'm wrong all the time. So
I'm never wrong.
Okay, now speaking of things that have gone
except for Sleepless in Seattle.
Huh.
A cinema masterpiece.
Besides Sleepless in Seattle, let's bring Gina in for Mandalorian season 3.
Yay! Hi.
This was Mandalorian chapter 22, the search for a meaning and plot. So in this one, big stories are trying to reunite them. It is cameo central in this show, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. But Gina, I'm gonna let, and Bo-Katan gets the Darksaber and is uniting because
Finally.
and as I kind of predicted, because she had beat the one who had beat Mando, and I had said this a couple episodes.
You said
Yeah,
that a
you
couple
did.
episodes ago.
You
You
did.
did.
So, and it was accepted. So, Gina, Mandalorian chapter 22. Are we improving at all?
Okay, I just have to say I can stop watching now because the thing I wanted to happen happened. It's like done.
Can the rest of us?
Yeah. So I'm like, what are they going to do? Are they going to bring back? They're going to bring back that boring Dr. Preshing stupid thing where they wiped his brain. They have that the mind wipe guy.
Clearly bring back Moff Gideon at some
Moff
point. Here.
Gideon, probably the last episode. They're going to
The next one.
I don't know what they're going to do with Grogu. He still can't talk. He was just in this episode for cuteness with Lizzo. I was like, this is so
He was
dumb.
just in this episode or the whole series?
The whole well, no, when he was battling that kid, that was the best thing he's done the whole season. Was battle that kid with his little battle part. Everything else, what are they going to do? They're going to make a helmet for him that has like the ears. I wonder who that is. Like, it's just I just can't. And
that's not very aerodynamic when he starts to fly.
Right. So with that jetpack. So then I'm like, okay, is Grogu going to be the Mandalorian? Is he going to fight Bo-Katan? I know he's not, but it's like, I just keep thinking, what are they going to do now that like my true ending was Bo is the Mandalorian. Done. Let's be done. So those are my two things. I don't know. And the armor, what is she going to do with Grogu? That's like the next finishing touch. That's my opinion. So no, this is the worst season, and I think the Grogu thing needs to end. Like, I'm done with him. Can we just focus on the Mandalorians now? So that's my opinion.
Okay.
So as someone who had not watched this religiously, I did watch this episode and I liked it. This wasn't bad. I was not looking forward to watching this. Sorry. Screaming children. But it wasn't bad. It kept me. I was able to follow it. I knew who everybody was. Loved the cameos. Shout out to you, Christopher Lloyd. I said Christopher Walken. Christopher Lloyd. Lizzo was great. Jack Black. Jack Black. Everything Jack Black touches is gold. He's so funny. I thought it was great. I don't particularly want to keep watching it. And it's funny because I messaged Derek about this. Why is it so much easier for me to get into Marvel than it is Star Wars? Because in both, people have different like alien races and all this stuff. There's different planets, there's different missions, there's a whole bunch of different important people. I cannot figure out why it is easier for me to get into Marvel, and I just can't get into Star Wars.
Kate,
and it bothers me because I want to get into Star Wars.
You have watched almost all of Marvel, and so therefore get all the inside jokes, and there's so much Star Wars.
But I tried that with Star Wars. And I could not get through Clone Wars.
It's just what appeals to you.
Yeah, it's just different. Yeah. It's hero. No, this is the hero's journey. So it's like if you're really into like the Odyssey and hero's journey, I feel like these are like hero journeys. So they're very long.
And Gina said it. Like you're watching this season, like you're kind of picking up the show with the season. This season isn't very good. I did enjoy this episode, like you said, Kate. I kind of enjoyed the cameos, even though it sort of pulls you out of the Star Wars universe a little bit. Though the Christopher Lloyd one, it took me a while to realize it was him because he's like so old now. But
seriously,
yeah,
he didn't have the crazy hair.
No, well, when I say a little while, it took me like a minute. I was like, is that him? Oh my god, it's him. Whereas Jack Black and Lizzo, you're like, oh geez, you can't miss them. But I mean, part of the show, even the first 2 seasons, were all these side missions that he would have to go on, and this was totally side mission city here. There was, you have to defeat this objective in order to get to your actual objective. So this felt more like the Mandalorian of previous seasons. I loved that his hatred of droids came back, and he's like, Bo's like, okay, now take it easy, don't get crazy, and then he's just like kicking the droids and everything. So I enjoyed this episode. Season is still not great. I'm just happy that it's gonna wrap up in 2 more episodes. So
Yes. I have to say I did like the Ugnaught when he could talk to them. I did like that. You had to know that he could talk to Ugnaughts. I did like that part. So
I liked the episode. To me, it had that Alice in Wonderland sort of feel, especially near the end when she was playing croquet or whatever game it was.
Yeah.
Grogu was helping her win. I did think about it is when she got the dark saber. I couldn't remember who said it, that someone predicted that correct. So it was Derek. I couldn't remember it was Derek or Pete,
yeah.
but
It was Derek.
I did like reading that Lizzo. I did read about Lizzo, how she's actually a Star Wars fan, and she was so excited to actually be part of the universe. So I'm glad they're picking people who truly appreciate it. So she was very excited to be part of that. Yeah, I'm curious where it's going next.
that's exciting.
I think Pete nailed it on the head.
Derek hates it. Hates it, I tell you. Hey.
Are we finished? No, you're not. Okay.
Never.
To me, the cameos yanked me, especially the fact that there were so many in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Jack Black
3.
and Liz ones. Well, no, but those, fine. Have those be your cameos for this episode, or have Christopher Lloyd be your cameo for this episode. You don't have all, especially when you haven't had big celebrity cameos up to this point.
Yeah.
Why do they have to be in the same episode?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It again gave me some sense of satisfaction to know that I had predicted that that's how she was going to get the Darksaber. But gosh, I just want this season to be done, and really, I want this show to be done.
Yeah, it's so sad because I really did love the first 2 seasons of this show so much. The especially the first season that came out of the gate,
Oh, good.
like at the start of Disney Plus, and I was just first 5 minutes of that first episode, I was like, I am into this. And the first 2 seasons were so good, and then Book of Boba Fett was mostly horrible, and we lost Kate.
We'll be back.
And then this is I would say still a little better than Book of Boba Fett, because that was really bad. But this season's been just very inconsistent. Mando, I guess he's still a central character, but he almost feels like a side character.
And actually, is it Favreau does this set? He has actually said Mando is no longer the Mandalorian
because it has to be Bo. But I'm afraid they're going to make Grogu, and I'm going to be so upset if that's what happens.
This is
no, I don't think so, because he's just there for laughs and cuteness.
I'm hoping they don't make him wear that helmet with the ears.
Okay, I understand I understand Star Wars has an issue with original villains because they can't have original villains apparently. But do we really need Moff Gideon back? Does it really have to be him?
No, it doesn't, because there's
anybody else.
There are so many other bad guys coming down the pipe.
No. Invent a new one. Invent a new bad guy.
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do. Only because they're trying to tie these into the Kathleen Kennedys.
Very disappointed in this season.
Yeah, it's one good. So, since Kate has, there's Kate. Kate
Okay,
is back.
perfect
Kate is
timing.
coming back up.
Perfect timing.
Okay. And Kate, we are ready for the Disney Plus news. What do we got this week? Besides your mute.
Disney Plus News. The final trailer for Peter Pan and Wendy came out this week. The film premieres at the end of the month. We also have Star Wars Visions Season 2 released a trailer, with the season being released on May 4th. This series features short standalone Star Wars stories from animation studios around the world. Didn't we already have something like? Oh, it's a season 2.
Season
Did I say it
2.
was season?
Season
Season
two.
2. Duh.
Season 1 was all anime,
That's
and
cool.
this one I
Season two
think
is
is
not.
more. Yeah.
Got it. And last but certainly not least, Ahsoka debuted a trailer this week, giving a peek at what will potentially be the plot for the season.
Okay,
Here you
Gina.
go, Gina.
What are we going to have to see in order to understand Ahsoka?
All right. So this is very Rebels, Star Wars Rebels, the animated series forward. So as I'm watching, you see a lot of characters from that cartoon, from that animated series. You have Chopper, the droid. You have Hera. She drives the Ghost. You have the Ghost. That is the ship. You have Sabine. She is a Mandalorian. And you have Thrawn, who's the next big bad, who's part of the Empire, old
As
Republic.
we nod and smile.
Yes. So it's Rebels, and then Pete said that he listened to Dave Filoni, who created it, say you need to see season 4, episode 10. So I looked it up, and I just think you need to watch season 4, episode 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 till you're done. So because that last episode is what the whole Ahsoka is going to be about. That's my.
Yeah, Kate, I'm kind of with you on that one. I'm also kind of feeling that about the Peter Pan and Wendy trailer that came out.
But Rebels is so good. Rebels is really good.
They,
Right, Pete?
So for any of you,
Rebels,
ahead, Pete, go
Rebels
ahead.
is so good.
Rebels is really good. It's not a slog.
I was
You're
just,
never
I was just,
bored. There's no
Yeah.
boring plots. There's no side missions.
Yeah.
The side missions tie in, even if there is one. You see Vader.
So, if anyone following along at home is like, hey, I wonder where Kate and Casey are in their Marvel journey, we have gotten past the snap. Thanos is no longer. Thank you. We have we just got into Loki. We are rewatching Loki, and it makes way more sense when you have recently watched all of the things. Much more sense. And after Loki comes either What If or WandaVision, and I'm very excited. So we're halfway through Loki, trucking along, doing great. We're going on. If we make it to the end of the year, it will be 2 years that it has taken us to get through all of it. Yeah, you're welcome.
Gina, did I miss a segue somewhere?
Yeah, and you actually had to watch. You actually had to watch more stuff than a Star Wars fan would have to watch all the Star Wars stuff, because you watched all the TV shows too, which there's a lot more of those.
I
for
did,
Marvel.
but if you think about all of the shows that are with Star Wars, I think that it would pull a close. I think it would be close. I think there's more movies. No, that's not true. There's more. We should do a side-by-side comparison.
You
We
gotta
have
get through
9
Clone
movies.
Wars.
Yeah, there's
Only have
there's
9
11
movies.
Star Wars movies, and there's like 30 Marvel movies.
Yeah, we have
So that one isn't
9,
even close.
and then 2,
And
11.
there's,
Wow.
admittedly, the Clone Wars is way too many hours. of
That's 10
television,
seasons
but,
or something crazy. Yeah.
But if you,
That's fair.
you know,
Anyway,
fair.
and that's
yeah,
Disney.
well,
Is
it's
that
like
the Disney
7
Plus
seasons,
news?
but there's like 140
And that's the
episodes
Disney
of Clone
Plus
Wars.
news.
So
And
Okay.
that's the Disney Plus news.
Wow. For those of you who are following
So-
along, I have no idea where we just were the last 5 minutes. So, so next week,
Derek nodded off.
Jeremy Renner's new series, Renovations.
Oh, Lord.
And this was filmed before his accident, but this is essentially he's going to be taking old public use vehicles, think buses and those kind of things, and making them into vehicles that will benefit communities. Think ambulances, think mobile libraries, think that kind of thing. So That's what the entire series. I think there's 4 episodes, 4 or 5 episodes come out. This comes out this week, so that's what we'll be watching for next week.
And if you haven't watched his interview with Diane Sawyer about his accident, if you didn't think he was a good dude before, go watch that interview, because he's a really freaking good dude, and he should not have survived. It's fascinating.
He is a real superhero. He really is.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah. For those of you wanting to get ahead a little bit on our episodes, the next episode where we're going to be watching something that is not being new released, we will be doing the Muppet movie in middle of May, the original Muppet movie. So if you're wanting to get a little bit ahead, like Kate did this week, going to be watching that sometime middle of May. Guys, if you have suggestions on what we need to watch, we've got some gaps in July, August timeline at this point. Please email us at plusplatoon@gmail.com. Or if you want to tell us how wrong we are, or how wrong everybody else is, and how much you agree with me. Yes, for the record, I have gotten a couple of those emails.
And how good Star Wars is.
You've got an email about that you're wrong?
No, I've got an email that I'm right and everyone else was wrong.
Your
Star
wife
Wars is the
doesn't
best.
count.
Ed, stop sending those emails.
Oh, it was Ed.
Star Wars is the best.
So, guys, thank you so much for being a part of us. Thank you for listening along. We wouldn't do this if you guys weren't out there. For Gina, Pete, Steve, and Kate, thank you so much. And we will see everyone next week. Bye, guys.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Bye.
Thanks for watching this week's episode of the Plus Platoon. Be sure to subscribe to the Plus Platoon podcast to keep getting great content each week. Then head over to Apple Podcast and leave those 5-star reviews, as they help make the Plus Platoon visible to even more Disney Plus fans. Also, go to YouTube and like and subscribe to the Plus Platoon channel, where you can watch all future episodes live. If you have a question for the Plus Platoon, please send us an email to plusplatoon@gmail.com, or connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @plusplatoon.
The Plus Platoon is a Disney Plus fan podcast and is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company or the Disney Plus streaming service. All opinions expressed on the show are solely those of the individual hosts and in no way reflect the views of the Walt Disney Company.
Thanks for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for next week's episode, because the Plus Platoon is to be continued.